Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, a JKL Media podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jesse Jackson. Joining me in the CNC is Lou,
Hello, everyone.
Karen.
Hello.
We are talking season 5, episode 19 of Babylon 5, The Wheel of Fire. This was also the name of the actual 5th season. One of the things that they did is JMS named each season a different title. And I thought this was another good one. Thoughts, Karen?
Yes. That's like my go-to answer when someone asks something where I like both of the options. I just say yes. Yeah, this was really good. It had a lot of the things that we had been talking about. It featured Jakar, which is a huge plus for me. And a lot of things were revealed in this episode.
And Lou, how about you?
Yeah, it was a very intriguing episode. A lot of moving pieces, and you get the feeling that the end game for the show is coming into focus now. It's definitely feels like we're coming to the end of something.
I'll start with you, Lou, and then I'm going your thoughts too, Karen. Both of you had expressed after the fall of Centauri Prime, okay, we've got 3 or 4 episodes left. What's next? Did you feel like we moved the story along, that it wasn't just filler this time?
Yes, I definitely felt that there was movement on all story fronts. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, same. I would say, which as a caveat, one exception is the Centauri storyline. It just got a drop-in mention. It didn't move very much, but I don't think we're getting a lot more of that. I can't see how that would fit in with everything else, but I have been wrong before.
You could see that I thought it was a really nice kind of showing Londo there still in his pain, though Lou might go well deserved. But
Look, I might say that too. It is well deserved, right?
um
F
but
around and find out.
be careful what you wish for. But I thought it was interesting that we know where that's going. We know that he's going to be emperor for a while based on the gray hair, and he ends with Jakar and him killing each other.
Right.
Is that kind of where we've seen the end of Londo and we'll wait for what's next, right?
Yeah, I feel like we've seen where that ends.
Yeah.
Now that we have, I don't know that we need a lot more there.
So let's start with Jakar, which is always a good place to start. I thought this was a little uncharacteristic. So happy that Captain Lochley is getting there. Oh, I'm so honored. I'm like, I guess maybe because they aren't friends, they don't know
Right.
each other that well. So it's, oh, wow, how nice that the captain's taken time. And then we get the reveal of absence has made the heart go fonder, and that the cult of Jakar has gotten even more powerful.
Yeah, I thought that was a cute little intro into what's been going on for him. And it's almost like Lockley, I get the feeling not only is she taking joy in this, but she's also pissed off that she has to deal with these fanatics, right? And so she's hoping that Jakar maybe can calm them down a little bit. But I think there's also some joy there in her eyes.
Yeah.
Hey, wait and see what's around the corner kind of thing. Yeah, I enjoyed that. We also got that drop in there. There was another drop in towards the end of Londo.
Yeah.
And the sobering part of that conversation talking about his time on Centauri Prime and
Yeah.
but leading him into
Yeah. Lou, any thoughts?
Yeah, it showed that Lockley has a sense of humor, or she just
Yeah.
delights in seeing people in awkward situations, I guess. That's a
Yeah.
bit
She
of a
likes
character
Schadenfreude.
reveal.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, so she yeah, I agree with you. It's weird that until that reveal, why did she take her time out of her schedule to meet with him? They've never really interacted to any great degree. That was right from the get-go. I was going, this just doesn't seem like her. But when that reveal of all those followers and Jakar's reaction to them, that he thought he had put this all behind him, but it's gotten worse, was funny. And I thought it was a nice little bit for Lockley to have something to do beyond just a day-to-day running of the station. So that was a nice character moment for her.
Yeah.
And she actually has the best character beats in the episode.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
episode for her. So I guess Janice found a way to write her.
Oh, and I thought it was really funny too when, Jakar sadly or ironically, oh, things have calmed down since I'm gone. I'm so happy. And then you see this, and he is just, oh gosh, why are you guys doing this?
Yep. Sad
You know?
trombones are playing in his head
Yes,
when
absolutely.
after he says, "Oh, it's so calm now after this time that I've," and
Yeah,
he is assuming that they won't like him as much because he went to Centauri Prime.
yeah,
So I think that it's a reasonable assumption on his part to think that things have calmed down, but I
yeah.
love how into the Schadenfreude
Hmm.
Lockley is that she is just delighted to see him
Yeah.
in this quandary.
Yes.
Sorry. So yeah, I really liked that. I think it's a shame that it's close to the end of the season and this is the episode where we see Lockley the most.
Yeah,
I understand it's because he liked Susan more. I would have liked to see her. She's a good actress, and I feel like she is completely underutilized overall. And
yeah,
in this episode, she's not. I appreciate that. So yeah, that
yeah,
scene was hilarious, and also some info was dropped.
yeah,
So that's what you want, right?
yeah. So we have Michael late for another meeting, and they finally, I think, the shoe drops, and they go, John says you're drunk, and they gets everyone out, and then he asks Garibaldi to stay, and they have the come to Jesus meeting that we knew worked. What Lou, as our favorite Garibaldi guy,
You're
uh,
pigeonholing me.
let's talk about this initial, and then then we'll talk about, I think, one of the highlights to me is him and Lockley's give and take. So
Mm.
let's start with just Sheridan, his interactions, and visit with that if you don't mind.
It was an interesting arc with this scene. At first, I thought, really, this is where you catch him on just some administrative stuff? When
Hmm.
all this big war stuff was going on and you didn't catch his drinking issue then. On further reflection, I said what happened was actually probably more true to life. How
Yeah,
a real person would get caught with his drinking problem, something mundane like an administrative meeting where they couldn't even function at that. I did like 360 on that scene. I was pissed. I said this should have been done during a really big dramatic moment. But then I thought, but this is how this kind of stuff happens in real life. So I ended up appreciating that. I would have liked to hear what Sheridan and Delenn said to each other and how Delenn changed Sheridan's mind. But it was fun to see Garibaldi sweating it out, waiting for Sheridan to come back into the room. I actually ended up liking it quite a bit. And I liked how Sheridan played it too with Garibaldi. Garibaldi wanted to get yelled at. He didn't want pity, which is what he got from Sheridan. But even that, Sheridan really didn't give him that out either because he turned it around and said, "No, I'm not disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in me for not catching
yeah,
on to this sooner." So I think that this was probably one of my favorite character scenes, how it played out between the Sheridan and Garibaldi, and just the reaction of the other people in the room as they left, the look that Zach gave him as he walked out.
yeah,
Um, Franklin didn't really have much, wasn't given anything notable. I thought
yeah,
he would have been a little more sympathetic to or whatnot, but they all looked appropriately awkward when Sheridan called them on it and before they left. So overall, I was really quite impressed with that scene, and I've really come to like it quite a bit.
Karen?
Same. And I do think that there's a behind the scenes kind of moment where Franklin is the one who contacts Garibaldi to come to the meeting.
Yeah.
So I think it's heavily implied that Franklin and Sheridan have talked before the meeting. And
Yeah.
Franklin says the signs are there that he's drinking again. And Sheridan's, yeah, I got that idea. Neither of them were surprised that he turned up the way he did at the meeting.
Hmm. Do you think it was a matter of giving enough rope to hang yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. And I also think that it came to a head here.
Yeah.
And Lou said, yes, it's like it would happen in real life, that people wouldn't really suspect that right off the bat, that maybe he's having a bad day or whatever. But it keeps happening over and over again. And that's where they begin to get that kind of inkling that's what's happening, that he's drinking again. And I do think that Franklin contributed to that kind of conclusion that they came to. So I think that we hit on both of these story beats in other earlier discussions, that we were hoping that Franklin discovers it. And we were also hoping that Sheridan discovers it. And I think we got the best of both worlds here, that they put Franklin in that scene in order to imply that he got it, and then Sheridan.
Hmm.
But I like that they consult each other on these things. We've talked about that as well, that it's weird,
Yeah.
the kind of relationship that they have in regards to the hierarchy of these organizations. But I think this was more of a husband-wife conversation where the wife talks the husband down.
Yes, it
Because,
could be.
yeah, I think Sheridan wanted to fire him, and I think Delenn said, hey, he's a good guy. He's been having some trouble after the whole Bester thing. And it does really, it makes sense.
Hmm.
And I think it was very well written,
Hmm.
that it makes it relatable to the real world. And I'm putting air quotes there.
Yeah.
And also it fits in their universe. So I thought
Yeah.
it was a great scene.
I'm going to stay with you and then I'll go to you, Lou. This is going to come up in some of our feedback and also in the Lurker's Guide, is if Sheridan suspected this, why was he still counting on Michael? Thoughts on that?
I don't think he suspected that hard. I do think that he was more towards the, hey, that stuff with Bester and other things in his past are
Okay.
traumatic. But he's
Okay.
trying hard, and I got to give him a chance because he's a good guy and he's good at his job.
Okay.
Uh, he didn't understand the full impact of the trauma, because that is what led him to drink.
Okay.
So I think it was a gradual thing. I don't think that when he first started to make mistakes, he thought it was immediately that this is a repetition. So
Lou, do you have any thoughts?
I just think that there was a lot of stuff going on. So that's
Hmm.
just not something that you're going to pick up on unless there's a real blatant faux pas on Garibaldi's
Okay.
part. And he hit it pretty well. So
Hmm.
yeah, I just think with the whole telepath thing going on and the Centauri
Yeah.
raids that he just was too busy. Um,
And you trust your people, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
you have to.
Um, yeah, absolutely. So he's not firing Michael. He's putting him on a leave of absence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's most people, right? Having somebody that you respect and admire, even if you're not friends, saying I'm disappointed in you just cuts the knife,
That's
right?
the worst.
Yeah,
Angry.
yeah. And
That's a trope too
yeah,
Yeah.
that we see on other shows.
I did that Franklin continues to talk to Jakar about his religious journey and how the people are treating him. So I thought that was another nice little discussion. It does lead to Jakar's decision, but any thoughts on that, Lou?
No, I just thought he was basically just
Yeah,
uh, being a plot device at that point,
yeah,
or
yeah,
that particular scene. He was just relaying information. So I didn't
yeah.
really. He
Okay.
took some amusement out of watching the acolytes fawning
Yeah.
on Jakar, and
And
they
he wanted you to have the little statue.
planted.
Yeah,
They really drove home the symbolism of the statue and
yeah,
the position that Jakar was in. So from
yeah.
that perspective,
Hmm.
they did
Okay.
accomplish two things with one scene.
All right.
Yeah, so we've gotten an action figure from both Jakar and Londo.
Yes.
I like to call it action figure.
Yeah.
I do think we got that scene between them, or scenes between them, because Franklin is, I don't know what it's called when you're a linguist, which
Hmm.
for religion, what would that be? A what?
A scholar?
Yeah, I don't remember, but he's definitely into that because he talked about being a fundamentalist,
Right.
Yes.
and
No,
that
foundationist.
I
No,
forgot his name.
close, but yeah.
I knew it was an F word.
Yeah.
Pardon my French.
Yeah.
He had that conversation with Jakar before. I think it's incredibly logical that he would be the one to talk to him about these people. I'm assuming he has had interactions with them because of
Hmm.
his want to understand different religions. And since this is the beginning of a new religion, I would think
Yeah.
that this would be valuable to him to see how it started, how it's evolving. I loved that he walked down the hallway and he was almost like, okay, I'll take the doll, whatever, when the guy insists on it. And then the fact that Jakar doesn't want any of them to knock anymore. He's just so
Yeah.
beyond all the people outside his doors, and he's almost reluctant to let Franklin in. So I appreciate their scenes together because that's a continuation of something that happened earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And then Franklin saying that the Kari want him back. He just does not want it.
Yeah.
I think that's very Jakar. And I don't know what's happening there. I feel
Yeah.
like that's still a little open-ended where the Centauri stuff isn't.
Yeah.
What is happening with him? And one of the things I still latch onto is what's going to happen to his eye? Why is he wearing an eye patch later on
Hmm.
in life? I don't know if we'll get that
Hmm.
at all in the last couple of episodes, but
Yeah.
I love that.
I think this is, yeah, and I did love the people love to give power to people who don't want it
Mm-hmm. Oh,
is
Lou
very,
hasn't said anything yet
yeah,
about the Franklin. Did he?
he said,
Sorry.
uh, EarthGov says they gotta arrest Lita, right?
Hmm.
Because there's terrorism and they think she's behind it and they want to have her discussion. And so, once again, this I think is a cool scene where she lets go and they're talking to her, and all of a sudden you realize she's controlling the frickin' room. And then that great line, I've been touched by Vorlon, and John, you're not the only one that's been touched by Vorlon. A badass line from your crush, Karen. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, seriously, I loved that. It was very scarecrow of him
Yeah,
to arrest himself. I think it would be weird in real life if the president showed up to arrest someone,
yeah,
but I think it makes sense in this case that he also got word of what was going on and
yeah,
figured he needed to be there
yeah,
to intervene. So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they are carrying out attacks on Psychor.
Hmm.
buildings? Like,
Yeah.
and is it only on Earth or is it like, don't they have an outpost on Mars or something?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's mostly Earth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a very Earth Gov thing
Yeah.
that they decided to intervene. I love that scene as well. I love them tapping and then banging on all the surfaces. And
Yeah.
it's cool that she has stopped everyone in that room. Why
Yeah.
she didn't do the same thing to Lockley, I'm not sure. Because Lockley wasn't affected by
She's
this.
proven a point.
Like,
Yeah. The idea is that,
look what I can do.
yeah,
Yep.
and don't F with me. Yeah.
And then when Sheridan, Scarecrow, comes
Yeah.
in with a gun to her forehead or the
Mhm.
side of her head, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And that it makes so much sense because John literally was in the same boat. He had a intimate connection with Vorlons
Mhm.
and they affected him. And so he would also be able to resist whatever Vorlon thing that Lita is using. I love that he gets that immediately. And I really dig that he comes in and he's okay, let's take her down. Lockley says, here's one way we can keep her from doing something on the way to the cell. And she just cold cocks her. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. And Lita in this whole episode, so intriguing. Such a heel turn on her during this episode. But again, I think it's due to trauma of her losing this guy that she was very connected to. And
Yeah.
I think it's dumb that when they're doing all this terrorism that they're writing remember Byron on
It's like
everything. They're
Yeah.
outing themselves. And terrorists don't do that. They want people to
Yeah.
guess at who is doing it, but whatever. I think they'd like to think of themselves as activists and not terrorists. It's that case of you're the hero of your own
Mhm.
story kind of thing. They don't think they're terrorists. They think they're doing this for the good of everyone.
Yeah. They are Malcolm X
Mm,
versus Dr. King, which
right.
is the X-Men.
Versus,
Yeah, Magneto versus Xavier.
but side note, why is
Yeah.
it Magneto instead of Magneto?
doesn't
I
sound as
don't
cool.
know.
Just note,
Doesn't
no, you're not.
Magneto
Yeah.
That's
sounds
a,
better than Magneto.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
called it Dark Seed forever, and so it's Dark
Oh,
Side.
Dark Side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
That's the whole point of his name. Just a nerd conversation.
Yes. Yeah, I think it makes sense that you would tag this because you're not only doing a fear campaign, so it's remember the Alamo or
Right.
something like that. Lou, what are your thoughts?
I got a bit of a different read on
Okay.
the John or the Sheridan. I've been touched by a Vorlon too. Yeah, it sounds cool and it plays cool, but I'm going, and so what? Like
Hmm.
they've never established anything that he has a resistance to telepaths or anything like that. So I was just going like, yeah, a big deal.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
It was just like this is something that should have been set up. They should have had an episode where Lita tried to read Sheridan's mind or another telepath, and they go, I can't read his mind. That's weird. But they didn't establish that. So this was just like they just to me they just pulled it out of the blue because they needed. How are we going to? We've got this cool scene. Lita's exerting control over everybody. But if she's doing that, then how can we get out of it? And they just pulled this thing out of the air about John being touched by Vorlons without establishing previously that it had affected him in some way because we've never seen anything substantial in the aftermath of any contact that he's had with Vorlons. So I to me it's the hand wave moment of the episode because it does
Okay.
play off cool and it makes Sheridan look badass, but I didn't think it was earned. I'm also a little taken back by how much Lita's power has grown, or how, again, the show hasn't really established. They've given hints, but they've never really established that she had that kind of control over that many people at once. And if she had that kind of power, when did it, was it the linking with Byron, perhaps, that gave it to the next level. They don't really, they don't give context to her sudden jump in power. They've hinted at that she's more than a 12, which would put her above Bester, but there's been hints, but I'm not totally sold on this magnitude of increase just out of the blue. And I
Okay.
know that fans and purists are probably going to say, "Oh, but she did this and she did that," but to me, there just wasn't enough breadcrumbs to justify her having that leap in ability. But again, it was a cool scene. I also feel like I realized because I did love the scene between I guess this is a bit later, but between Franklin and Sheridan when Sheridan says, "I can't understand why she would be changed like this." And I'm sitting there, dude, like all the
Same.
crap that's happened to her. Franklin
Yeah.
lists it all off, and then I thought surely Sheridan would have picked up on at least one of these instances, but he's totally like,
Yeah.
I can't believe she turned like that. And I'm going, what? It was weird. It was a cool scene. I don't think it was totally earned, but I just accepted it. And I thought everybody played it well. It was directed well. The only thing I was hoping when they were slamming the desk that they were going to start doing "We
Yeah.
Will Rock You."
Yeah. So
That would have been awesome.
so here's my thought, and I am not disagreeing with you because it either works or it doesn't work, right?
Yep.
But in my mind, that I think Sheridan, she said Sheridan was going to join us. And I think he's on the side waiting to see what's going to happen, right? And he does not realize
Yeah. Okay.
if he can be affected or not.
Point of order.
Okay.
Nobody knows about Lita's powers, so why would they have called Sheridan in? Because they don't know that Lita's got powers, and they don't know that Sheridan's immune to her powers.
Remember, Lochley said, "Where's the president?" He said he wanted to be here
Why?
because it is someone that he was involved with. He's not respected her altogether, but it is he wants to be there because this is someone that was involved in the inner circle, is what I'm guessing. Okay. And so he's off to the side.
I,
Then,
I'm sorry to
okay.
keep cutting you off, Jesse.
No, no,
That's
no, I get you. I'm
no,
telling you from
no.
my
I,
Or
perspective.
it
So,
didn't happen.
yeah. And the other thought is that they've consistently she doesn't know how far her powers can be. So she keeps trying different things. And as she's learning she can do more and more. And then I do think that similar to the scene in Buffy where Niall said, I'd like to question that theory. It just is a great dramatic scene that you give a little bit away from. But
Yeah,
totally get that.
it's convenience for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Let's talk about Lockley and Garibaldi's discussion. And once again, I'll start with you, Lou. She shares a lot of herself and gives a lot of her history. He, being a typical denier, isn't appreciating, doesn't giving all this stuff. And then she gives him this wonderful gift where she called Elise and said, Your guy needs you. Head this way.
yeah, it
So
was
yeah, go ahead.
okay. Yeah, it was a great scene for her, and this was definitely her best episode as a character. Really get a more rounded character instead of just I'm running the station and I'm going by the book, blah blah blah. Here we see there's a lot of nuance to her character, and I thought the explanation or the supposition that perhaps her and Garibaldi got off on a prickly start because they both on some level realized that they were both alcoholics. I thought that
Yeah.
was a fantastic explanation. I loved it, and I think it really encapsulated their relationship, their interactions during this season quite nicely. So I thought that was an excellent scene. And it's the only way with her background and the way she's acted this season that I bought that she would take this kind of interest in Garibaldi at all. So I just thought this was an example of how you set up something and pay it off in a way that you can go, oh yeah, I totally see that this is why they acted the way they did to each other and why she now can come forward and offer Garibaldi a helping hand, and would otherwise, under any other circumstances, I wouldn't have bought it. So I just thought that this was a really well done segment of the episode.
Okay. Karen.
I agree. I loved the talk that they had.
Yeah.
It was Lochley being as far away from an authoritative figure as she could be. It was her opening up and being vulnerable. And I love how she went into the whole my father was an alcoholic thing. And that needed to be set up for her to say, yeah, I'm an alcoholic too,
Yeah.
because she needed to give the context behind all of that. And it was touching. It really hit. And then she says, I'm an alcoholic too, so I get it. And it's at that point that Garibaldi kind of turns and says, oh, so you do get it.
Yeah.
Whereas before he was like, you don't understand. You will never understand what's going on. And so now he sees she was traumatized by her father being an alcoholic, just like he was traumatized by Bester.
Yeah.
And it made her turn to the bottle as well. So it's it's not exactly the same, obviously, but
Yeah.
there's enough of a similarity that she understands what he's going through. They
Inferred, implied.
inferred
Okay.
that they were both the same type of person
Yeah.
when they both came on board, I guess near the same time when he came back and when she was
Yeah.
appointed. And they butted heads. They got sandpapery with each other. And I think that's because she sees in him a similar outlook, almost wanting to be optimistic, but can't get there. I think it's their personality, both of them.
Yeah. In the script book, he talked about that Tracy Scoggin shared with JMS that she had been thinking that she had a drinking problem and that she was wondering what he knew. And he said, nothing. Just
Hmm.
again, how real life sometimes is weird. And as of the book, which is probably 10 or 15 years ago, she had been sober the whole time.
That's cool
So,
to know.
yeah, that is. How about so Elise is there, and I'm going, this is the easiest choice ever.
Mm-hmm.
Go to
Yeah, really.
Mars, live with the woman who adores you, that forgives you. She still wants to knock boots, and she wants you to run her billion-dollar industry. Or I could stay at Babylon 5.
Where they
Uh,
just outed me.
yeah. What do you, let's go, Lou, thoughts on that? And then I want to hear from you too, Karen.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Jesse. It's like easiest decision in the world. And
Yeah.
Garibaldi even drives a point home to himself when he says, "Oh, he's leaving, she's leaving, they're going.
Yeah.
I'm there's a lot of big changes here." So it's yeah, why would you
Yeah.
stay? I can understand that he wants to try to clear up his reputation or image in front of his friends, but they're all leaving, so they're
Yeah.
not going to see his rehabilitation. So that
Yeah.
point is rather mute. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Karen?
Yeah, uh, they're setting it up to be this is the perfect time for him to go because
Yeah.
everyone else is going. And this is that, hey, let's wrap up the show kind of thing where they
Right.
all go their separate ways. And one of them is last out the door and turns out the light and looks back at how that is. It happened on Cheers and on Friends and a bunch of other shows. So yeah, I feel like it's starting that ramp to them all scattering to the winds. Unlike Friends and Cheers, these people are close to each other, but it's more because of their position
Yeah.
in life. They weren't brought together as friends. So while there's going to be some kind of sadness to be
Yeah.
away from these people. I think it's an easy decision for them to go with whatever they're loving.
Yeah.
John's going with Delenn,
Yeah.
Garibaldi's going with Lise, and
Yeah.
all the other people are going with something they love. Franklin loves this whole part of his job, so
Yeah.
he's going to go with that. It's such a no-brainer,
Yeah.
essentially. And I would like to think that he shouldn't be promoted immediately to CEO of the company. That makes me hesitant. But I think if he runs it with Lise, I think they'll be good to go. And I think that's a little convenience as well because of what happens with Lita.
Yeah, and I do think that in her point, there's a board of directors, there's an executive team, and she's thinking perhaps that when he's sober, he'll be able to rely on good people to trust, and she's inherited it anyway. So
And
it's there.
she says that there's parts of her job that she doesn't want to do that he could be good at, the
Yeah,
being a hard ass. And
right.
I agree that he could be good at that.
So let's cut to Lita is in the jail cell just staring ahead. He goes to talk to her. She destroys the camera because she could. It's that thing, the trope of someone either lock picks or breaks the handcuffs. And I was just doing this because I'm being polite. And they make a deal. And then we find out that there is another deal, which I thought was a nice little, we get the deal. And then later, Garibaldi goes, ugh, this is actually darker than we think it is. Share your thoughts about Lita and Garibaldi's deal with the devil, Luke.
Yeah, that was a bit of a nice twist, actually. I wasn't expecting that. And the only thing I thought, she said, I'll come back, I'll check with you in 2 years. I thought, but we're not going to see that, are we?
Yeah,
And it'll be interesting if that's something that we follow up in the animated movie or not. But
yeah,
so that was, but I want to see that. And the fact that she can blow up a camera, and again, because I don't know, they don't clearly lay out her powers. I'm going like, why is she in a straitjacket? Like, what is
yeah,
that? What's that got to do with anything? If
yeah,
anything, you want to blindfold her and gag her and
yeah,
plug her ears so she can't, which would make it harder, I would think, for her to influence people or reach out telepathically. I don't know, or drug her. Or I don't know, but
yeah.
putting her in a straitjacket was she's not Hannibal Lecter. It just was weird.
Hmm.
But so it's an interesting deal, and it would be interesting to see how that played out, if ever. And I'm just again, Alita's expansions in power is just a little hard to assimilate for me, even now after watching it and sitting on it for a while. It just seems like the leap is quite substantial, and it's almost more like I would have expected if she just had puberty or something like that, like Carrie or something like that. But
Yeah,
this is just okay. This is still hard to digest for me, but she was touched by the Vorlons or manipulated by them,
yeah,
and she's been through a lot, and she met Byron, and I just keep going, okay, there's grounds there for it, but still, it just doesn't quite go down the palate that
okay.
easily for me still. But it's an interesting deal. It was a nice twist, and it would be something that I would have actually been interested to see
Hmm.
dramatized.
And they do a little bit of that where he talks about a nuclear weapon, right? Karen, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd like to think that she's hiding these abilities, although as audience members, I would have liked to see some of that
Yeah,
played out before all this. I do think that she is keeping it as down low as she possibly can. I think that her still being in the straitjacket might be an analog to tell us that she's not using her powers as much as she could. That's how we get the idea that she is definitely holding a lot of stuff under a rock. She's hiding it under a bushel, as it were. not getting out of her straitjacket, not breaking out of her cell. I think that is her saying, okay, I'll play along, but I can get out of this. That's
Okay.
her whole thing. And then the eyes glowing, we saw that before
Yeah.
when she was transferring whatever or it was transferring into her from Kosh or whatever the second one, Olkesh. I'm not sure
Hmm.
which one that was, but her eyes glowed at that point. And so that's definitely something that was established. And it was also a surprise to me that Garibaldi's the one who's in this with her. And also
Yeah.
because of what's going to happen with him on Mars and taking over this company, he's going to be able to do things under the table that other
Yeah.
people wouldn't be able to do. And also that scene where she overhears them talking.
Hmm.
She's outside the office and she overhears Garibaldi talking about the whole Jakar thing, that he realizes that
Yeah.
Jakar made a deal with her. I thought that was a good story beat as well. And
Hmm.
that scene between the two of them, she is so menacing, and that analogy to her being a nuclear bomb and him slowly realizing that is actually what she means and it's the truth.
Yeah.
You have to think that he is scared, but also he needs her to
Hmm.
remove this neural block. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I agree. I would have liked to see all that happen and not 2 years down the road, but it's
Yeah.
realistic in real
Sure.
life that it would.
Let's stay with you, Karen. Any thoughts on that?
Makes me sad that he is going to go a wandering, but I get it.
Hmm.
He doesn't want all this stuff that people are trying to force on him. And wandering would be the best way to get out of that people wouldn't be able to catch up with him.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so he moves around, and that makes it a little fun. But, the fact that he's going to be with Lita is worrisome.
Mhm. And Lou, how about you?
I'm blanking. What was the question? Or
Lita and Jakar.
has that been established that they're going together? I don't. I know that he was talking about leaving, but I didn't know that
Yeah,
they're
he
thinking of.
mentions that he could use a companion.
Well,
And if I'm spoiling, I'm spoiling, but yes, they are going away.
Says in the summary for this episode, he has actually become a hindrance to his race's advancement, leaving him in the same position as Alexander, caught between the rock and hard place, unable to go home, yet unable to stay. His time on Centauri Prime had been a learning experience and the inspiration for his solution: leave civilization and explore the galaxy, and he can take Alexander with him, solving both their problems.
Okay.
okay.
So it was mentioned, but it was very brief.
Wants to
They
go
want to
back to Earth.
solve this
She wants to.
problem, but they
But remember, that was the deal. He says,
Oh yes.
Garibaldi says, I can
Get
use a
you. Yes.
senator.
Sorry. I don't know. I'm blanking on that part of the
No,
no,
and
episode.
that's all
then,
right.
and she says, but I'm going to have to leave Babylon 5. And he goes, yes, you're going to have to lose Babylon 5.
And she doesn't want Bester to get a hold of her, so
Yeah,
it's a
so
Right.
this
convenience for
Yeah.
every.
way,
Yeah.
mhm,
She's
Yeah.
definitely going to
So
agree to it.
yeah, that works despite my mental full blank out on that
yeah,
sequence because they've dealt with each other, Lita and Jakar, in a previous
mhm.
episode, so it makes sense that they would want to do that together. Plus, he's probably wants to see
Her pleasure threshold.
He's
what her
kind of
pleasure,
into
yeah,
her.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
he's
wants to
into
find out
her,
her
and
pleasure
so, yeah,
threshold.
so
Yes.
he's maybe,
This goes all the way back to the pilot, like we said
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, so that would work out good because we know of where he ends up with Londo. The fact that he would be gone for a while would give the
yeah.
time passage that allows them to both, especially from a physical perspective, Londo age to that point that we saw in that future that Sheridan saw. So that makes sense as well.
And I do wonder sometimes if we could have gotten that would have been a fun spin-off
Mm-hmm.
of Lita and Jakar traveling and
Foo.
Yeah.
equivalent, right?
Yes, exactly. All right, Delenn passes out, and John's all worried, and Franklin just drops this, yeah, dude, she's pregnant. And they're like, what? Which is a little funny because he did know they had a kid, but they sometimes tend not talk about that. Like
Hmm.
we have to take a hand wave of what he remembers and what he doesn't remember of
Yeah.
that flash forward. But we are going to have a baby, which was important. Karen, thoughts on Delenn being with child?
Yeah, they definitely set that whole thing up. The one thing that bothered me about that is the whole falling into that trope of, didn't you know she was pregnant?
Yeah,
Or like, she hasn't lost the baby.
yeah,
I do that it's all stuff that has come together that has been dropped in from previous episodes. And I think it's like Lou said that maybe he doesn't remember everything because he would remember a kid. That would be a definite highlight from going to the future and finding out. So maybe there's stuff he doesn't remember, but I thought it was cool that she's it. And I've never had kids, never going to have kids, but I have been around pregnant women, and they're definitely mood swings and not knowing when to eat more than they should and all that thing. So it was very plausible to me.
Lou?
Yeah, it was a cute moment. I grimaced when Franklin just blurted it out. I would have thought he would have been a little more subtle about it and then said maybe you should go talk to her about
Yeah,
it or something like that. Instead of just blurting it out like that, I thought that was a big failing in his bedside manner. I don't know, like that's something between the couple, not between the.
that's his bedside manner before.
Yeah, so that was just clunky, but all the other stuff was fine. I have to wonder what their child would look like because she's half human, half Minbari, and he's all human. So it's going to be one third Minbari and two-thirds human, or
Yeah.
whatever. That would have been interesting to see. Again, maybe we'll see that in the animated movie. Don't know, but it was a nice way to close out the episode.
Yeah, this kid's going to be a descendant of both captains because it's been
Yes.
established that she's a descendant of Velen, who
Right.
was actually
Hmm.
Sinclair, a distant relative of Sinclair and a direct descendant of Sheridan. Funny.
Yeah, that's well done. Mira Fairlane did not realize she was pregnant when they were filming this.
Oh, that's cute.
She had not figured, and they figured it out afterwards. So that was nice. Yeah.
Life imitating art.
All right. Anything else we've forgotten to talk about in this one? Yeah.
Yeah, this
Yeah, they
is up
crammed a
there.
lot in.
Yeah, this is up there with the best of the series. Once I got past the telepath story, everything else has been pretty
Yeah.
golden, really.
Yeah. All right. Lou.
I will give this 8.5, and just because we've been so down on him, I'll say remember Byron.
Ah, nice.
Gross. I'm gonna give it also 8.5 dead rabbits because that's how they used to test for pregnancy.
Yes. Yes, the rabbit died.
Yep.
I am going to make it a triple, 8.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Great job offers.
Nice.
Yeah.
No
So
brainers.
Yeah.
the Lurker's Guide has it 8.58.
Huh.
So we are very much
Oh,
in sync
nice.
on this one. Good stuff. Hey, Karen, I think we got a little bit of feedback, correct?
We got feedback from Nathan and Texas on the Shock. So let me read those. Let's start with Nathan. Hey guys, if there's an episode where the name doesn't fit the content, it's this one. I didn't know the idiom, looked it up, and there are no multiple fallouts if one decision is slight. It's just about a consequence per decision. Good point. Awkward comedy with Jakar has finally grown into an unexpectedly huge personal problem, but at least Lochley enjoys it. Her being an MVP of this episode is a big bonus. Yep, we agree, Nate. That's perfectly sums up how we feel about it. She's fantastic here. Lita is at the height of her arc, and while it seems that station crew actions are justified, it only shows how dismissive and unjust they were since season 4. Sheridan not only abandoned Byron's telepath, but also dismissed Lita completely, and her fight, which is the mirror of his own fight against an authoritarian government. The thing that annoys me here, writing-wise, is the convenient immunity Sharon has to Lita's telepathy. Remember how I was annoyed by the similar use of torture instead of telepaths when Sheridan was captured? Just connect those, which would make this episode a reason why telepathy didn't work on Sheridan, either because of Kosh or Lorianne, except GMS kept using the weak excuse that EarthGov didn't want to use telepaths because some telepaths out of its control could have scanned Sheridan, like that would have happened. And it still wouldn't stop scanning to get the codes. They did the next episode using drugs and machine used to pry into Sinclair's lost 24 hours. So after the momentous events of last episode, essentially the climax of the season, we now go on to the falling action. Jakar is finding his followers have become even more zealous to the point that he feels his message is getting lost in his shadow, to the point he feels he needs to leave because his presence is becoming a distraction. That makes him the second leader this season after Byron to run into this problem. He and Franklin have a little discussion about this, leading to Franklin asking one of those philosophical questions: can God make a rock so large even he can't move it? Though he modifies it to, can God make a puzzle so complex even he can't figure it out? To suggest that we are too complex for God to figure out, I consider to be absolute hubris, but I find this question to be along the lines of the one Byron mentioned episodes ago: how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? Answer: as many as want to. My reaction to both those questions is, why would they want to? Yeah, great point.
Yes.
It's the kind of religious claptrap that scholars can debate until they come up with an answer that sounds deep and insightful, and then pat themselves on the back for how wise and learned they are without actually learning anything meaningful about the nature of God.
Yeah.
I've thought that before, to be fair, but yeah, I feel like that's the case here as well, that he's implying that scholars are sometimes so into their own opinion that they can't see the forest for the trees. Moving on, Garibaldi's drinking has reached a point that is painfully apparent, much to John's disappointment. He fires Garibaldi without actually firing him, leaving him to consider his choices, though he just winds up stewing in his quarters until Lochley comes to give him a good talking to and actually opens up about her own struggles. I like her comment that they didn't get along because they were too much alike. She calls Lise over to help Michael out, and she offers him love, passion, and co-ownership of one of the largest companies on Mars. Michael decides that it's a better offer and agrees. And then he realizes this gives him an opportunity and goes off to kill two thieves with one stone. And that brings us to our telepathic thermonuclear device. Lita's powers have been growing for a while now, but here, every time she's on the screen, she seemingly feels the need to demonstrate it. She controls an entire room when Lochley and Zach come to arrest her for funding anti-psychor terrorism. Fortunately, Sharon is apparently immune to that. And when Garibaldi comes to talk to her, she just casually destroys the security camera with her mind. Now she just doesn't seem to care anymore, and with nothing holding them back, they're just growing stronger and stronger. Garibaldi makes a deal with her, or tries to. Lita's counteroffer is to continue funding acts against the Corps while putting together a force for a more extensive campaign against them and covering it with a fund to create a telepath homeworld. In return, she'll remove the neural block from his mind enabling him to finally go after Bester 2 years from now, if his preparations meet her expectations. She's going to go with Jakar off into the uncharted reaches beyond the rim. Oh, and Delenn's pregnant. So we're winding down all our characters' tales. What comes next? Whatever happens, rest assured that long after we are gone, our voices will linger in these walls for as long as this place remains. This is the Texas on the Shock signing off until Zaveni in Valen's name. Fantastic feedback. God, I love their feedback.
I do too.
Ethan and Texas on the Shock should do their own podcast.
I think so too.
Yeah,
Lou, any feedback on our YouTube channel?
Yeah, we got quite a bit for the last episode, which was the fall of Centauri Prime, and Texas is in there as well. While you did bring up Franklin's speech at the end, you really didn't discuss it that much. He talks about nuclear weapons that wound up in the hands of smaller rogue nations after the fall of the Soviet Union, comparing the shadow pods to said weapons. There was a video by Lindsay Ellis comparing 1996 Independence Day with 2005's War of the Worlds, two movies with similar premises, but which were created in very different worlds and have completely different tones. One a product of a general sense of optimism and ease of mind that was prevalent in the 90s, and the other the product of the world that has and that sense completely shattered. Babylon 5 this season in particular fits in between those two. The economy was still going strong, but there were signs of weakness. Lewinsky scandal had broken. North Korea was on the verge of becoming a nuclear power, and the first of the sides of Al Qaeda were being felt around the world. Very good points, Texas.
yeah.
And thanks for the addition to your email. Joel Miller, maybe you don't remember, but Londo was horrified when Morn talked to him about killing 10,000 Narn. Doesn't mean Londo is a great person, but he did horrible things out of weakness, not pure evil. Cartasia was evil. And yeah, again, I don't have any issues with that, and I totally agree with that interpretation. But the end results in both cases was still the same.
Start it.
Exactly. He was the key. He was the key. And whether you did that in a moment of weakness or pure evil, it doesn't matter to the victims. They're still the victims, right?
Yeah.
4 episodes left. Multiple threads to tie up. One episode will be painful. One will be upsetting. I guess the other two are
Dun,
just
dun,
whatever.
dun.
And then Joel says if JMS reboots B5, it won't be 20 episodes, 26 episodes per season, and it can be released whenever.
Fantastic news.
Said, and I'm not going to go through all this because there's quite a few examples here, but he disagrees with Texas about saving the eye was not about the eye, never was. JMS didn't talk about it. At the time, people thought it was maybe Jakar's eye Cartagia took out, or maybe something else. JMS has later given a couple of completely different answers, one of them being the I as in me, Londo saving himself, a blind fool for the better future to happen. So him enduring 16 years of enslavement for war without end.
Great.
The reason that we feel let down by the end of the Delenn linear scene is that there is no resolution so far. We know that there is going to be more and some kind of an ending. Think of literary archetypes of the three-way relationship. If the elder of the two is evil, then the younger hero saves his love or he doesn't, the Scarlet Letter. If all three are basically good, then one of the two can withdraw, acknowledging the others should go together, Sound of Music, or the hero preserves his honor and dies for the others, A Tale of Two Cities, or one or more character fails, and there's going to be a fall, fails, and there's going to be a tragic collision of some sort, Camelot. We are left waiting for one of these resolutions to emerge. Joel pipes in, says, Delenn never loved Linier the way he loved her, regardless of Sheridan. And that also was quite true.
100%.
Yeah.
FMS Dog says to me, the Chinese curse isn't, or there's no proof of it. And he's right. I Googled it, and it's just a common some myth that it was a Chinese curse. You live in interesting times. And then Joel's got a series of numbers for the and episodes, and I don't.
Some of that is because I said there was really only 3 episodes left. And what I meant was 3 episodes of content that goes along with this season and
Okay.
1 episode that was filmed before this season. I know there was 4 left. I wasn't under any misconception, but there really is only 3 that were written during this season.
All right. And
Yeah.
that's
Lou, if someone wants to give us feedback, how can they?
They can check out the YouTube channel, Lou's Reviews, where the flagship podcast is our Babylon 5 podcast. And then our sister podcast, the JKL Media podcast, is there as well. Some breaking news on that's going to get its own separate channel, and it'll be called rebranded
What?
slightly to JKL Media Reviews. And we'll announce this also on our JKL Media podcast that we're doing today. But we're going to be reviewing the second season of Severance
Severance.
Yes.
as it airs, which is something new for us because everything we've done so far to date has been something that's aired quite a while ago. So we'll be doing weekly episode reviews for that show, which is quite exciting. KL Media Podcast is going to be our overall thoughts on season one. And yeah, we're all excited, and we're looking forward to talking about this amazing series. And haven't been this excited about something since Lost, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And of course, there's the other podcast, the Writers Podcast, the Stephen King Podcast, and you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lou W. Sytsma, Sytsma.
Karen, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
For now, they can reach us at jklb5podcast at gmail.com. That is going to also evolve with the creation of the new channel. We'll let you know in our Severance episode what that will be. And just another reason for you guys to tune into that.
I am at Jesse Jackson DFWB on Twitter and X, and continuing to talk Springsteen and music on Set Listing Bruce and John Hyatt on Perfectly Good Podcast and Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere. All right, we are getting close, guys. There are 3 episodes left. Objects in motion, objects at rest, sleeping in light. I always thought that was nice, the objects in motion, and then the next week, objects in rest. This
That's
makes
great.
for fun kind of title. Come back as we finish this ride. I just appreciate everyone's support, and I'm so glad that Lou got this complete box set for Christmas a few years ago and said, guys, I want to talk Babylon 5. So
Hmm.
I hope everyone had a safe and happy New Year's celebration. And let's all hope for the very best for 2025.
You're here.
We'll talk we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye bye. And scene.